Hey guys, in this video, we're going to talk about how to predictably recruit and retain a door-to-door sales force. We're going to talk about things like the realities of building a door-to-door sales force, recruiting process that will actually help you understand how to recruit the sales reps, and really how to compete with the big boys, the top 10% of sales forces who typically attract the top 10% of sales talent. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Holman, founder of Sales Recruiting University. We're a 65-person sales recruiting service and coaching company. We help companies predictably recruit sales reps and help them build out training systems to retain those sales reps. Today, we recruit over 1,000 commission-based sales reps every single month and growing, and I know you're going to get a ton of value from this training. Let's first start with a reality check that 99% of the marketplace, and you may already understand this, but 99% of the marketplace, sales candidates that are actively looking for new opportunities, they don't wake up looking for a new opportunity and go, you know what I want to find? I want to find a door-to-door commission-based sales opportunity where I have to self-generate and close my own deals. And the reason it's important for you to understand that is you need to know going into the recruiting process that 99% of the marketplace is not interested right now in your opportunity, and therefore you actually have to get good at the recruiting process, which means you need to create high volumes of candidate leads in your recruiting process. You have to get good at screening through hundreds of people quickly to find the best people to get in front of, and then you need to get good at selling your opportunity to actually get people excited about your mission, your vision, your values, your industry, your company story, the plans for growth in the future, the compensation plan, the career path, all of those things, so that they actually get to a place where they're like, hey, I'm interested in working for you. And then finally, you need to get good at understanding who to hire. And really, that's what this training is going to be all about. You understanding as a business owner who's open or who could be open to your opportunity, how to recruit them into your opportunity, and how to retain those reps, resulting in the sales production, which is obviously one of the biggest reasons you're building a sales force, is so you can have a revenue machine that you can predictably scale. So for most businesses that are interested in scaling a door-to-door sales force, they go into the recruiting process, ideally looking for already proven people within their industry that are successfully selling their products and services today, because they assume that if I get those kind of people, the training and management aspect of building our organization will be much easier. And there's an aspect of that that's obviously true, but it's important for you to understand that if you're only looking for industry reps that are successful right now, then you naturally need to be in the top 10% of sales forces in the country. And what I really mean by that is the top 10% of sales forces that are even open to door-to-door sales, or even more specifically, top 10% of sales reps who have door-to-door sales experience in your industry. Well, in most cases, they're already happy making money at another company, and even if they're open to taking another opportunity, they're smart and they understand what to look for, so they're going to proactively seek the top 10% of sales forces, or just simply start their own company. Let's take solar as an example. Let's say that I'm an experienced solar sales rep, and last year I made $180K, and I was supposed to transition into sales leadership, but the owner lied to me to get me on board to their organization. And I've recently found out that I'm going to probably be in the sales rep position over the next 1 to 2 years, and therefore I'm open to new opportunities in the marketplace. Well, in that case, I've been in solar for a while because last year, the fiscal year, I made $180K plus. Because of that, I've become more familiar with the industry. I know the top brands and organizations, and I can better seek out where the best opportunity lies in the marketplace. And let's pretend that those top opportunities, those top 10% of organizations are opportunities A. And they're the ones that have 20, 50, 100 plus reps that are making six figures plus hundreds of additional reps. They have tons of stores across their organization nationally with offices all over the country where reps came in and transitioned into sales leadership. They've built a team under them, and they've experienced this amazing growth in their career. And on top of that, opportunities A, they have a setter program. Those setters are self-generating leads for closers. There's also training pay in the first 90 days as I come on board, so there's a little bit more security. And on top of that, their employer and their customer-facing brand is amazing. And let's compare that to the opportunity B, or maybe there's 0 reps, or maybe a few reps, or even up to 10 sales reps, and maybe 0 and up to a couple reps actually seeing success. The online brand is kind of wonky. They have a few reviews, a couple of them suck. There's no employer brand, so I don't know what their past employees have said about them. So really, there's less proof at face value about that organization in their opportunity. And on top of that, it's just an A to Z, D to D sales position where the reps are responsible for self-generating and closing their own deals. Now, if I'm a top 10% salesperson and I'm looking at opportunities B and A, well, obviously 9 to 10 out of 10 times, the proven top 10% sales rep is going to go with opportunity A because their confidence in them personally seeing success in that organization is exponentially higher than opportunity B. To use myself as an example, if I were to go look for a door-to-door sales opportunity right now, I know 5 companies that are on our client list. We've served over 1,300 companies, and there's only 5 of them that I think of that I would reach out immediately to learn about their opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that the other hundreds of organizations in the door-to-door sales space don't have good opportunities, but I just know confidently these 5 companies, and there's probably more, I know confidently these 5 companies have the best sales programs, the best opportunities, the best brands, the most successful sales reps, the the most money in the bank, and so on and so forth, therefore giving me confidence that I'm personally going to see success there. And the reason I explain all this is not to discourage you, but to give you the proper expectations as you go into the recruiting process, because it's the quality of your opportunity in your sales program that attracts the best people in the marketplace. Now, you can get there over time, and that should be everybody's goal, because once you are a top 10% sales force, recruiting and retention gets exponentially easier, and it's a beautiful place to be. So with that said, the natural question for you, assuming you're not a top 10% sales force today, well, how do I actually predictably recruit and retain door-to-door sales reps? And the answer is that you get better at everybody else in your marketplace, in your industry, at recruiting the other 90% of the marketplace that's out there. And what's really cool is when you actually get good at the recruiting process, like we'll talk about in this training, as you're cycling through that other 90% of people in the marketplace, you will find diamond in the roughs that come on board your organization that are actually top 10 percenters. But unfortunately, recruiting those type of quality reps is not a predictable thing. So with that said, let's dive into something that I call the 10-30-60 rule. See, the 10-30-60, it results into 100. And I'm talking about 100% here. So the 10 is the 10% that we've been talking about. It's the top 10% of sales reps. It's the reps that everybody wants, regardless if you're the top 10% of Salesforce or if you're the small business owner. The middle 30% in the 10-30-60 rule is what we call the average Joe. Now, with that said, you can't take an average Joe and make them a top 10% salesperson over time, but that's assuming you have quality sales leadership training and management processes. But that middle 30% is the one that we're going to focus on in this training. That average Joe sales candidate is the person that aligns with your mission, vision, values. They'll show up with a good attitude and consistently do the work that you lay out for them. And it might be obvious, but the other 60% are the people that we ideally transition out of the recruiting process before we bring them on board. And or if your recruiting systems are not dialed enough, you can transition them out in the first 1 to 4 weeks in your onboarding process. And so we have the top 10% of candidates, we have the middle 30% average Joes, and we have the bottom 60% who are going to transition out of the recruiting process or out of the onboarding process early, so they're out of sight, out of mind. See, that middle 30% and 90+% of the cases is not going to be familiar with your industry and probably even door-to-door sales. And this opens up the recruiting opportunity to you and allows you to present something unique in the marketplace that they haven't considered maybe in the past that will actually allow them to hit their personal, professional, and financial goals. And that's the beauty of commission-based sales. It really is the best opportunity in the marketplace, but a lot of people don't fully understand it. And what this does is it opens up the recruiting opportunity for you to get a bunch of these average Joes into your recruiting process, allowing you to present something new and unique in the marketplace that maybe they haven't considered in the past, an opportunity that will actually allow them to accomplish their personal, professional, and their financial goals. And that's what's really important to them. They need to understand that whatever those things are, they can be done within your opportunity. And on top of that, of course, they need to have confidence in your culture, your industry, your leadership team, the comp plan, and the career path. And all these things together, which we'll dive more into in a little bit, will result in you being able to predictably recruit average Joes, which again are the type of people that will show up and do the work with a good attitude and maintain quota, and even for some of them turn into top 10% reps later. So with that said, let's dive into the traditional recruiting process, which most of you are probably doing today, assuming you're actively recruiting today. Transition from there to talk about the SRU recruiting process, which will allow you to increase the volume and quality of your hires while eliminating 50 to 75% of the time investment compared to the traditional recruiting process. So depending on the market that you're in and how efficient you are in the recruiting process, followed up with how good you are at selling your opportunity, this will result into you needing at least 50 and sometimes up to 100 applicants to get one hire onboarded into onboarding. For the sake of this illustration, we'll assume that it's 50 applications to get one recruit into onboarding on Monday. Now, the traditional recruiting process is you're going to get 50 applications in. You're going to spend 30 if you're quick and probably up to 60 minutes on screening through those 50 applications and opting out 60% of them just based on their background alone. So in the traditional model, we've taken 50 applications, we've spent maybe up to an hour, and we've opted out 30 of those 50 applications, leaving us with 20 people that we want to speak with. From there, we're taking those 20 applications and inviting them to a 10 to 15 minute phone interview to learn a little bit more about them, to pitch the opportunity, and to figure out if we're able to set a one-on-one interview with them later. Now, if I do 20 phone interviews that are 10 to 15 minutes long, that's an additional 3 to 5 hour time investment in the traditional recruiting process. Now, assuming you're actually good at the recruiting process and selling your opportunity on that phone interview, you'll end up converting about 10 of those people to take next steps into a one-on-one interview. Those one-on-one interviews are going to be 30 to 60 minutes long, which is another 5 to 10 hours on your calendar. Unfortunately, 40 to maybe 50% of those candidates are not going to show up, which means you actually wasted a ton of time and you met with 5 to 6 candidates. And out of those 5 to 6 people, you recruited 2 people. And in most cases, especially for the small business owner who maybe doesn't have leads and training pay and these kind of things, only 1 out of those 2 people actually show up to Monday for onboarding training. And so what we've done in this traditional recruiting process is we've invested 10 to 15 hours just to get one person to show up on Monday. And where it gets even more frustrating is more likely than not that one person will not work out. See, most of you at best are going to need to recruit 2 people to retain 1, which is a 50% retention rate, and at worst need to recruit 10 reps to retain 1, which is a 10% retention rate. Now, every organization is a little bit different, but typically the top 10% of Salesforces, because they have the best sales programs, are better at retention, and the small business owner who maybe doesn't have quality sales leadership yet, they haven't worked through a lot of their sales program kinks, is on the lower end of the retention rates. The average door-to-door sales force that works with us gets to a 33% to a 20% retention rate over 90 days. By not only getting good at the recruiting process, which we'll talk about here in a moment, but also getting good at the onboarding and management and compensation aspect of building your sales team, which you can learn more about in our free course at salesrecruiter.com/course. So for the sake of this training, we can assume that you need to recruit 5 average Joe reps to get 1 to stick and scale up into quota. Now, if you're doing $1 million in revenue today and your next big goal is to get to $5 million, which is a difference of $4 million in revenue, the average Joe expected quota is going to be $500K in net revenue a year. Well, $500K divided by $4 million, which is the difference in revenue to hit my goal, that is 8 additional reps that I need on board today to accomplish that goal. Now, if I need 8 reps producing at quota to go from 1 to 5 million, and I also understand I need to recruit 5 reps for every one that sticks, well, that concludes that I actually need to onboard 40 sales reps to get to the point where I retain 8 reps that allows me to get from 1 to 5 million in revenue. And if you understand now with the traditional recruiting process that it's going to take 10 to 15 hours for every recruit, then you can reasonably conclude that this is a full-time job and you need an expert sales recruiter running the traditional recruiting process. And if you're anything like our average door-to-door sales client, we literally have hundreds of them, then you're a small business owner, you don't have the resources to hire a full-time recruiter that ends up making 80 to 150K a year. And even if you did have the resources, your need doesn't really align with that, because maybe as soon as you get to 3 or 5 or 10 additional sales reps on staff, then you'll turn off recruiting anyways. So with that said, let's talk about how you can cut off 50% of the time investment compared to the traditional recruiting process, assuming you're doing it all by yourself, or even up to 75+%. At a high level, this recruiting process consists of 4 steps: advertisements, administrative high volume screening and automated scheduling, a group interview, and a final interview. And we'll dive more into those details, but let me paint a picture of what it could look like over a 30 to 90 day period for you. Our average door-to-door sales client is looking to retain 5 to 10 plus commission-based sales reps over a 90-day period. Now, when they work with us, they're only responsible for the group interviews and the final interviews. And really what that looks like from a week-to-week basis is they're doing a couple group interviews weekly. These group interviews are 20 to max 30 minutes long, and they're doing 5 to 10 final interviews weekly, which are 30 minutes each. So in total, they're investing about 5 hours of time on average. And the result of that weekly is them signing 2 to 3 reps per week. So as an example, if I do a couple group interviews weekly, 5 to 10 final interviews per week, and I'm consistently investing that 5 hours per week in group interviews and final interviews, as well as recruiting 2 to 3 reps per week, which is 8 to 12 reps per month, well, over 90 days, I've recruited 24 to 36 sales reps. And with a 20+% retention rate out of those 24 to 36 sales reps, I've retained somewhere in between 5 to 10, sometimes more reps over 90 days. Most likely over that 90-day period, I have 1 to 2 killers on the sales team, and the rest are those average Joes, that middle 30% that we talked about, who are showing up consistently and doing the work and producing quota. So let's go back to the advertisement process, which is step 1. Now, of course, in the advertising process, the goal is quality candidates. But again, in a lot of cases, the top 10% of salespeople, they're already happy at another organization. So with that said, although part of the goal is quality, the other half of the goal is actually getting volume through the recruiting process. And because of that volume need, and because of what I said at the beginning of the training, which is 99% of the marketplace is not interested in door-to-door sales opportunities, we naturally have to get creative in the advertisement process. To give you an example, let's say I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that's where my sales office is, and I'm looking to build a solar sales team. Well, most people would just run like an outside sales representative role, or maybe just a solar sales consultant position. Well, what we would do is we'd get a little bit creative with the titles and the job descriptions and the income ranges, and ultimately create 3, 4, maybe up to 5 different job descriptions, titles, and income ranges that somewhat align with the opportunity, but really align with getting volume into the recruiting process, and leverage that idea to get volume. So as an example, if I'm that solar sales force and I'm building a canvassing team, a D2D sales team, and a closing team, well, I'm probably advertising for entry-level sales representative, independent sales associate, outside sales representative, solar sales consultant, and maybe even in-home sales representative or high-ticket sales representative. And I'm doing these 3, 4, maybe up to 5 advertisements in Salt Lake City, and that's allowing me to increase the volume exponentially in my recruiting process. And with that strategy, we're solving the volume issue, and now we actually have a chance to recruit enough people with our 20% or whatever the retention rates are. Again, the volume is required when building a commission-based sales force. It's not recruit 3 reps next week and all of them produce $1 million in net revenue the following 12 months and you get rich overnight. There's more to it than that. And so in terms of the recruiting process, step 1 in advertisements, the goal is volume and quality. Step 2 is that administrative screening and automated scheduling process. And at a high level, what we're doing here is we're eliminating the phone interviews and taking the best people on paper that are worth pitching, and we're outbounding to them via email, text, and sometimes on the phone for those of them who are not responding via email and text, and ultimately allowing them to self-schedule with an automated scheduling link into one of the upcoming group interview presentations. So if you can imagine candidate leads coming in and I have all my email and text templates set up and I'm sending out emails and texts and I'm following up with candidates with an automated group interview scheduling link, they're getting that link, they're scheduling into the next group interview, well, you can obviously conclude that this is a fairly simple administrative screening and scheduling process. Now, the copy of your emails and the texting and the tools that you use to make all of this process work is obviously important. But now you have a basic understanding of step 2. And what we've done so far is we've had high volumes of candidate leads. We've taken them through a screening and scheduling process. On average, our recruiting team is opting out 2/3, sometimes up to 75% of the candidates that come through. And you're pushing the rest into group interview presentations for the group interviewer to come in and pitch the dream. Now, to bring it back to those averages that I talked about over a 90-day period of recruiting 24 to 36 reps over 90 days and retaining 5 to 10 plus of them, on average, assuming you're running the recruiting process correctly, that's going to require at least 600 plus applications a month. So it's 600 applications a month or 150 per week. That's resulting into 2 to 3 recruits per week. Step 3 is the group interview. This is where you're coming in to your Zoom group interview, your face-to-face group interview, and you're pitching your opportunity, you're selling your opportunity with the intention to convert people to take next steps into a one-on-one. During the group interviews where they're really learning about the A to Z opportunity. Now, there's multiple ways to do this, but the way that we set this up for our clients is we provide for them an 8-step group interview script and an 8-step PowerPoint that aligns with that script. At a high level, that 8-step process is first the pre-frame and the introduction. That is just introducing candidates to this process, why they're there in the presentation, what they're going to learn, what next steps will be if they're interested in the opportunity, and just really setting the tone for the presentation. So this is really similar to what you probably do in the home when you're selling your products and services. You do a pre-frame and you set the tone for exactly how the sales conversation is going to go. That's exactly what step 1 in our 8-step group interview process is all about. Step 2, 3, and 4 is about your culture, your industry, and your company. Now, what's incredibly important about these 3 steps in the process is as you're explaining these things, candidates need to be drawn in and understanding that this opportunity, this presentation, your company, from a culture, industry, and organizational perspective, is incredibly unique compared to other opportunities that they've heard about. Your goal is to help them understand that your culture, your industry, your company story and plans for the future is more exciting than any opportunity that they've seen and that they will see. And so what I've done in the first half of the presentation is I've set the tone. I've talked about the culture, the industry, the company story, the plans for growth in the future. And all of a sudden, candidates are in the group interview presentation and they're like, wow, this sounds really cool. Now, steps 5 and 6 is where you start to get into the unsexy aspects of your opportunity. This for you is the commission-based aspect of your opportunity, how they're self-generating leads on the doors, how maybe they're not going to make money for 30 to 90 days if you're in something like home improvement sales. This is ultimately where that information starts to come. And that's why the first half of the presentation is so important. They need to be bought into the opportunity, the culture, the industry, your company, before you start to present these unsexy aspects of your opportunities, so it's not really a big deal by them. And to help you understand a little bit more about these 2 steps in steps 5 and 6, is step 5 is about the sales position, and step 6 is something we call the sacrifice. So in step 5, you're giving them a high-level understanding of your A to Z sales process. Not like the sales tech and the scripting and those kind of things, but at a high level what you do in the field. On top of that, you're helping them understand within your 1 to 2, 3 positions what the income ranges are. So as an example, if I'm that Salt Lake City solar company and I'm just hiring into one sales position, which is a door-to-door sales position, a solar sales consultant position, then I'll help them understand that the average Joe's going to make 75K plus, that the top 20 percenters are going to make 125K plus, and the top 5 to 10 percenters are going to make 175K plus, or whatever your numbers are based on your commission-based compensation plan. Again, step 6 is called the sacrifice, and this is really just educating the group interview candidates on what it looks like to see true success in their life, and helping them understand that there's a sacrifice regardless of what career path they go down, whether they want to be a doctor and go to school for 10 years to make 6 figures, and how that's a time and financial sacrifice, or if they want to go down the route of being a low salaried worker and just barely paying their bills like the average US citizen, and how that's a sacrifice of probably being miserable and being broke and working till they die. And bringing them into the sacrifice of what it looks like to ramp up into your position, which is maybe going through the learning curve of door-to-door sales and going through that initial ramp-up period over 90 days, maybe like in a roofing or solar sales position. In most cases, in a door-to-door sales opportunity, the sacrifice is going to be in those initial phases of learning the door-to-door sales gig and ramping up to a good income. But hopefully that makes sense. So what we've done in the first half of the presentation is we've built value, 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 just like in a sales pitch. and we've gotten them excited about our opportunity, in steps 5 and 6, we've presented the unsexy aspects of our opportunity, but set the tone of really what it looks like. And then we lead into step 7, which is all about the career path, so that they know once they get through that sacrifice and they're crushing it in the sales position, that there's other opportunities in your business. This is where you need to get really clear on what you want to accomplish as an organization so you can reverse engineer the team size and understand what leadership structure, what leadership opportunities exist to accomplish your revenue goals in the future. This allows you to actually present these things as objective truths in your business, resulting into recruits getting excited about it. Advancement opportunity is one of the biggest reasons we get people to take that next step into our commission-based door-to-door sales opportunity. And it's important for you to understand exactly what opportunities exist. Now, once you've got really good at this presentation, you should be converting 50+% of the candidates in the group interview into one-on-one interviews. Now, depending on if you're doing group interviews via Zoom or face-to-face, is going to determine what process you do from the end of the group interview to the final interview. But there is sometimes an additional layer of screening and scheduling that needs to happen in between the group interview and final interview. But obviously, step 4 would be the final interview. Now, in terms of the SRE recruiting model, this final interview is also an 8-step process, but I'm just going to focus on the most important aspects of the final interview for you. The first thing you need to understand is in the group interview was just you pitching the opportunity. And this is kind of us selfishly in an efficient way trying to screen through the volume so we can cycle through hundreds of people quickly in the recruiting process and end up in one-on-ones quickly with the right people. And you need to come into the one-on-one interview understanding that the group interview process wasn't very personal and that the one-on-one interview is all about the recruit. And so one of the things that we do is we do a deep dive into the candidate. And we want to understand what they already like about our opportunity based on the group interview presentation. We want to figure out what's been missing from past opportunities to put them into a place to now be looking for new opportunities. And we want to clearly understand their personal, professional, financial goals. And when we understand what they already like about us based on the group interview, what's been missing from past opportunities and what their personal, professional, and financial goals are, we can present our opportunity in a way that helps them understand that the things that they like about us are absolutely going to be things that benefit them. What they were missing from past opportunities is something that they will not miss here, and how their personal, professional, financial goals are absolutely going to be accomplished here if they do X, Y, and Z. And when we can make those things more real to them in that one-on-one interview process, their confidence about moving forward is much higher. Now, from a role fit perspective, in that one-on-one interview, we want to make sure that they're actually excited about our mission and company vision. If they're not excited about what we're trying to accomplish day to day, what we're trying to accomplish over the next 5 to 10 years, then it's simply not a fit. Another ideal is that we figure out through the one-on-one interview questioning process is that they align with our company values. If at face value, it seems that they're excited about the mission, the future vision, if they align with our company values, which of course we can't know for sure until we see them play out, then those are good signs that it's potentially a good recruit for you. And that last role fit item is all about sales ability. Now, this one's going to be radically different for every opportunity. We have organizations in the same industries, in the same markets that can take kids and turn them into champions, and also other clients in those same markets in the same industry who would think those same kids that are younger are totally not a fit for their organization. And so your personal leadership and management and training experience is heavily dependent on the type of recruit that you want to bring on board. But in general, from a sales ability perspective, the more alignment they had in the past around their sales background to your opportunity is going to ensure more likely that they're a fit. So what I mean by that, if I'm that solar company in Salt Lake City and I'm hiring a rep that did solar sales for the last 12 months and he did well in it, then obviously that's an ideal. The next ideal from there would be somebody who did outside sales, but they self-generated and closed their own deals because we're pushing somebody into a door-to-door sales position. From there would be an outside salesperson who just was a closer, or an inside sales rep who's self-generated and closed their own deals before. Going all the way down to the most entry-level type of person who hasn't even done sales before. And again, your ability to onboard, manage, and lead people is going to be highly dependent on the type of recruit you bring on board. And if you're really not sure where to start based on that information, you can just assume a minimum of 1 year sales experience, regardless if it's inside or outside sales, and they align with the company mission, vision, and values. After you start to scale the sales team and figure out who works within your business, you can start to increase the screening requirements later. But it's in step 3 and 4, the group interview and the final interview, where you start to funnel into that middle 30% that we talked about earlier, allowing you to bring on that average Joe. That will be that type of person who can show up with a good attitude and follow instructions and do the work. Now, with that said, of course, you're going to hire people that fit into that 60%, and your retention rates are never going to be perfect, but those people will just naturally cycle out in the first 1 to 4 weeks as you bring them on board. But through the volume of onboards, you find those average Joes that show up with a good attitude, do the work, they produce, they make good money, scale revenue for the company, and all of a sudden you're in a position where you can predictably recruit and retain door-to-door sales reps. Now, assuming you actually implement that 4-step recruiting process and get great at it over time, One of the next challenges that you'll run into is actually the onboarding management and training aspect of building your organization. And there's a lot to learn about those topics. If you'd like more free training from us around recruiting, managing, onboarding, training sales reps, and so much more, get our free course at salesrecruiter.com/course, and we'll look forward to seeing you inside. Thank you so much.